Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm here with Mike Church. Mike, thanks for coming out to the conference.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Left hand. Left hand fellowship. What's your general opinion about nullification, particularly in relation to a Constitutional Convention? What do you think is better or more effective to basically restore the Republic?
Well, two different questions.
Okay.
Because one is a permanent injunction. Article 5 Convention permanently alters the foundational law, Constitution. A nullification just ends a abridgment of the Constitution. So it's a temporary relief against an unjust and unconstitutional law. So one is separate from the other. Is there a preference? Well, it depends on what you're trying to nullify.
Sure.
So if you're trying to nullify, say, which you couldn't do, but let's just say for argument's sake you're trying to nullify out-of-balance budgets, well, an amendment would do the trick. You wouldn't want to nullify that. A nullification effort, though, to get rid of something like, say, the Affordable Care Act, that's something that you interpose in one particular instance. And that is, if it's not granted as an enumerated power and the Congress exercises it, then you basically are telling the Congress, like, you guys made a mistake. We're the last check on the checks and balances, and we're telling you that we're not going to let it go into effect in this state, and we hope that the other states see the wisdom of doing so until Congress can convene and repeal it. So nullification might actually, and if you read Jefferson's first draft of his nullification resolution for Kentucky in 1798, he hopes that the other states will join, they'll get together, and Congress will repeal the Alien and Sedition Acts, which ultimately happened even after Virginia and Kentucky nullified after he was elected president. So one is long-term, more permanent, one is short-term, intended to interrupt a immediate, pressing, acute need.
Have you interacted at all with Mark Levin's book and what he's proposing?
No. I've only read reviews about the Liberty Amendments, and from what I've read, it seems like there's a couple of the amendments that seem like that they're in line, or that would be something that I would think would be constructive. Any amendment that gives power back to the we don't have to give it back to the states because the states already have it. They just haven't been enforcing it. But any amendment that reinforces the fact that a state ought to have a check on, especially the actions of the Supreme Court, is to me is a worthy endeavor.
So from your perspective, if I understand you wouldn't be against Constitutional Convention based upon what it was trying to accomplish.
Well, there's two schools of thought on that. One is that there's no way you can't call an Article 5 convention without it potentially getting out of control, meaning that you can't tell it they can only do a certain thing because there's no mechanism that can bind. Once a convention meets, it's a convention. It's
runaway train.
Well, it's a legal body. I mean, it is meeting in a legal body. Now, there's nothing in the federal Constitution that says that you could restrict it. But I like to quote Bruce Fine on these, the great Bruce Fine on these things. Freedom comes, there's risks with being free. Self-government has risks. That's a risk you're going to have to take. Do you think that if a convention runs away that 3/4 of the states are going to ratify the runaway excess? If they would, well, then they probably would have done it in the affirmative anyway. So I don't have a problem with it. There is an outfit called Compact for America, and there's a very, very detailed plan for an Article 5 for a balanced budget amendment, and it is specified from the time it starts to the time the resolutions are held or heard, to the time it goes to the Congress, and it comes back to the states, and the convention is convened on July the 4th, 2014, and what it can talk about. It even has the amendment already written. They think that they have corralled the runaway aspect of it. I tend to agree, but you'd actually have to put it into effect to see. Do I have a fear of it? No, I don't have a fear of it. I have a fear of what's going to happen if we don't do something.
So to understand what you said about Bruce Fine, that was a principled statement. In other words, he hasn't gotten on board to endorse the Constitutional Convention.
Oh, yes.
Bruce Fine has.
Oh, yeah.
He's right.
Well, it's not a constitutional convention. It's amendment. The proper terminology is an amendment convention. And I had a forum in Washington, D.C. on the April the 9th, 2010. Bruce Fine, Randy Barnett, Kevin Gutzman, and our dearly beloved late brother, Tony Blankley, all attended. It was called a Federal Solution for a Federal Crisis, an Article 5 Amendment Convention Symposium. And in that symposium, yes, Bruce Fine is in favor of an amendment convention. So is Randy Barnett, so is Professor Gutzman, and so was Tony Blankley, who used to be Newt Gingrich's press secretary, remained a political consultant for the rest of his life until he died 2 years ago.
Have you interacted with Robert Natelson? Because I hear he's part of this. He's pushing for this too.
I have not, but I have read Natelson's. I've read some of Natelson's work, and I would agree. Yeah, he is.
Thank you much.
You're welcome.
Cool beans. Look at this. How much you paid me, Rocco?